The date was March 8, 2026. A stark, alarming scene unfolded outside Rihanna's opulent Beverly Hills mansion when a woman, after parking her white Tesla, retrieved an AR-15 assault rifle and discharged 10 rounds into the property. One of those bullets shockingly penetrated the wall of the residence, where Rihanna was present with her partner, A$AP Rocky, and their 3 young children, the youngest of whom was a mere 6 months old. The sense of vulnerability and terror was immediate. The perpetrator was identified as Ivana Ortiz, a 35-year-old speech pathologist from Orlando. Her motive was baffling. She had no discernible connection to Rihanna, had never met the star, and lacked any logical reason to be at her home. Yet, for weeks leading up to the attack, Ortiz had been spiraling into a disturbing online obsession. Her social media, particularly Facebook, was littered with posts tagging Rihanna, levying bizarre accusations of witchcraft, falsely claiming the artist had AIDS, and aggressively demanding direct communication. Her online behavior grew increasingly erratic, including a video where she, clad in a blonde wig and American flag shorts, provocatively called out Cardi B. In another instance, she attempted to legally prevent a Billie Eilish concert from taking place in Florida. Tragically, despite these blatant red flags, no one in her immediate circle intervened, no one reported the alarming posts, and no one recognized the escalating danger until an AR-15 was brazenly aimed at a global pop star's front gate in broad daylight. Ortiz attempted to flee, heading south on Coldwater Canyon Drive. However, police swiftly launched a helicopter pursuit, tracking her white Tesla and apprehending her just 30 minutes later in a Sherman Oaks parking lot. Inside her vehicle, authorities discovered the AR-15 rifle along with 7 spent shell casings. She was subsequently booked on charges of attempted murder, with bail set at a staggering $10 million. Miraculously, no one was physically harmed in the incident. However, this alarming event was not Rihanna's first terrifying encounter with an intruder. In 2018, a man named Eduardo Lennon had successfully broken into her Hollywood Hills residence, remaining undetected inside for a harrowing 12 hours before her assistant discovered him. Lennon later pleaded no contest to felony stalking. While Rihanna has thankfully survived both harrowing experiences and her children remain safe, her luck is a stark contrast to the tragic fates of others featured in this compilation. John Lennon. The request seemed innocuous enough, an autograph. Lennon obligingly signed it. 5 hours later, that same man would fatally shoot him in the back. The afternoon of December 8, 1980, found Mark David Chapman loitering outside the Dakota, John Lennon's iconic apartment building on Manhattan's Upper West Side, clutching a copy of Lennon's album Double Fantasy. When Lennon emerged, Chapman approached him. Lennon graciously signed the album, a moment famously captured by a photographer. Lennon then departed in a limousine, but Chapman remained. For 5 more hours, he waited in the biting cold, engrossed in J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. Chapman was 25, a former security guard from Honolulu, and a born-again Christian who had once idolized the Beatles. His fandom, however, had curdled into a conviction that Lennon was a fraud. He perceived a profound hypocrisy. Lennon's anthem, Imagine, famously urged the world to envision a life without possessions, yet the artist resided in a lavish apartment overlooking Central Park. In Chapman's mind, molded by the worldview of Holden Caulfield, the central character around whom he had constructed his identity, such phonies were deserving of destruction. His twisted plan meticulously laid, Chapman had purchased a .38 caliber revolver in Hawaii, loading it with devastating hollow-point bullets. He had made 2 previous trips to New York, seemingly unable to commit, before finally steeling himself for the act. At 10:50 that night, Lennon and Yoko Ono returned to the Dakota. As they stepped out of their limousine and approached the archway entrance, Chapman called out. Lennon turned, recognizing the man from that afternoon. In that instant, Chapman opened fire, discharging 5 shots. 4 bullets struck Lennon in the back and shoulder. He stumbled forward, climbing 5 steps into the building's lobby, uttering the chilling words, "I'm shot." He then collapsed. Rushed to Roosevelt Hospital in a police car, he was tragically pronounced dead upon arrival, at the mere age of 40. Remarkably, Chapman did not flee. Instead, he dropped the gun, removed his coat, and calmly sat on the sidewalk, resuming his reading of The Catcher in the Rye. When the horrified doorman screamed, "Do you know what you just did?" Chapman simply responded, "I just shot John Lennon." The world was plunged into mourning. Over 200,000 people spontaneously gathered in Central Park for a silent vigil, and tragically, 3 fans took their own lives in the wake of the news. The dream, as Lennon himself once famously sang, was unequivocally over. Christina Grimmie. With open arms, she welcomed a fan, only for him to produce a gun and shoot her in the head. Christina Grimmie was a vibrant 22-year-old talent on the cusp of superstardom. She had begun posting captivating cover songs on YouTube at the age of 15, cultivating a loyal following of millions. Her journey saw her achieve 3rd place on The Voice, and the music industry took notice. Adam Levine himself had expressed interest in signing her, and Selena Gomez had mentored her since her teenage years. On the night of June 10, 2016, following a performance at the Plaza Live in Orlando, she was engaged in her usual post-show ritual, standing at a table, signing autographs, posing for selfies, and warmly embracing every fan who approached her. Her assailant was Kevin James Loibl, 27, a man who lived a reclusive existence akin to a hermit in St. Petersburg, Florida. He had no friends, no social life, and no formal diagnosis, yet he harbored a profound and singular obsession. Loibl dedicated most of his waking hours to watching Grimmie's videos on YouTube, meticulously monitoring her social media and tracking her every movement. Alarming signs were evident. His coworkers were aware of his fixation, as was his sole friend, but tragically, no one intervened. In the months leading up to the shooting, Loibl underwent a series of physical transformations: hair transplants, teeth whitening, eye surgery, and significant weight loss, seemingly preparing himself for a confrontation with her. When confronted by coworkers about these changes, he would become angry and defensive. Shortly before departing for Orlando, he unsettlingly remarked to someone that he was tired and ready to ascend. He traveled to the venue by taxi, armed with 2 handguns, extra magazines, and a hunting knife. Crucially, there were no metal detectors at the Plaza Live, nor were patrons frisked upon entry. Thus, he easily blended into the line of fans. When he finally reached the front, Grimmie, with her characteristic warmth, smiled and opened her arms to embrace him. In that moment, he fired 3 shots, 1 to her head and 2 to her chest. Her brother, Marcus, who was selling merchandise nearby, heroically tackled Loibl to the ground. However, Loibl managed to break free, produced a second handgun, and fatally shot himself. Grimmie was rushed to the hospital but tragically succumbed to her injuries just 35 minutes later. At her memorial service, her brother Marcus delivered a heartbreaking eulogy, confirming the depth of her compassion. "All the rumors are true. When the gunman came, her arms were open. That's how she treated everyone she knew." Rebecca Schaeffer. She answered her own front door, anticipating a script. Instead, she received a bullet. Rebecca Schaeffer, a luminous talent, was just 21 and rapidly ascending in Hollywood. She had already starred in the CBS sitcom My Sister Sam, and was a leading contender for the coveted role of Mary Corleone in Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather Part 3, with a crucial meeting scheduled with Coppola himself that very evening. On the morning of July 18, 1989, she was at her West Hollywood apartment, eagerly awaiting a courier delivery of Coppola's script. The doorbell rang, but it was not the package she expected. Her killer was Robert John Bardo, 19, a high school dropout from Tucson working as a janitor. 3 years prior, he had seen Schaeffer in a television commercial, and something in his mind irrevocably locked into place. He began sending her dozens of letters. Her single, polite response only served to fuel his delusion. In 1987, he traveled to Los Angeles twice, once bringing flowers and another time armed with a knife, but security turned him away on both occasions. His obsession took a sinister turn when he saw Schaeffer in a love scene in a film. He snapped, deciding she needed to be punished. Researching other stalking cases, he learned how another actress's address was obtained via a private investigator using DMV records. Bardo replicated this method, paying $250 to acquire Schaeffer's home address. He rang her doorbell that morning. She came downstairs to find a stranger holding a letter she had once sent him. They spoke briefly, during which she firmly told him not to return. He left, retreated to a nearby diner, where his anger festered. He then returned. When she opened the door a second time, he produced a .357 revolver and shot her in the chest. She collapsed in her doorway, and despite being rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, she tragically died 30 minutes later. Bardo was arrested the following day, found running through highway traffic in Tucson, and was subsequently sentenced to life without parole. Schaeffer's brutal murder profoundly changed American law. California enacted the nation's first anti-stalking laws, and the Federal Driver's Privacy Protection Act made it illegal for state DMVs to release residential addresses. These crucial protections exist today, a grim legacy born from a 19-year-old paying $250 to find the front door of a rising star. Gianni Versace. He merely stepped out to buy a newspaper and never walked back into his home. On the morning of July 15, 1997, Gianni Versace, the legendary fashion designer, departed his opulent Miami Beach mansion for a routine stroll to the news cafe, intending to pick up his Italian newspapers. As he ascended the front steps of his residence, reaching for the ornate gate, a man approached him from behind and fired 2 shots into the back of his head. Versace was 50 years old, at the zenith of his career. His eponymous fashion empire was valued at an astonishing $800 million, and his designs graced the likes of Princess Diana, Madonna, and Elton John. Credited with inventing the supermodel era, he was, without doubt, one of the most celebrated and influential men in the world. His killer was Andrew Cunanan, 27, a college dropout from San Diego who sustained an extravagant lifestyle by preying on older, wealthy men. Superficially charming, impeccably dressed, and obsessed with luxury, Cunanan was, beneath the veneer, a pathological liar who spun elaborate fantasies, often claiming intimate friendships with celebrities he had never actually met. Versace was one such figure he frequently boasted about knowing. Whether they had ever truly crossed paths remains a subject of dispute. The FBI believes they had a brief encounter at a San Francisco nightclub in 1990, though Versace's family vehemently denied any acquaintance. By the time Cunanan arrived in Miami, he had already embarked on a horrific 3-month murder spree, claiming 4 lives. A former naval officer brutally beaten with a hammer, an ex-lover shot and abandoned near a lake, a real estate developer stabbed dozens of times, and a cemetery worker murdered for his truck. Cunanan was, in fact, on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, his face plastered on posters throughout Miami Beach, yet astonishingly, he remained unrecognized. 8 days after Versace's murder, police tracked Cunanan to a houseboat barely 2 miles from the mansion. Cornered, he took his own life with the very gun he used to kill Versace. His motive was never definitively confirmed, the investigation tragically concluding with that final bullet. Thus, the man who adorned the world's most powerful women died on his own doorstep, slain by a stranger whose entire existence was a meticulously constructed lie. Björk. He meticulously spent a year constructing a bomb, then filmed his own death. Ricardo Lopez, 21, lived a solitary existence in a small apartment in Hollywood, Florida, earning a living as a pest exterminator. Devoid of friends, relationships, or any life beyond the confines of his 4 walls, he became entirely consumed by an obsessive fixation on the Icelandic singer, Björk. He maintained an 800-page diary and recorded over 18 hours of video footage, speaking directly into the camera, meticulously detailing his intensifying feelings for her. In the earlier recordings, his demeanor was calm, almost analytical, as he discussed her music, her unique voice, and her ethereal presence. He described a connection he profoundly believed was real. However, as the months progressed, his diary entries grew disturbingly darker. He ceased sleeping and eating properly, visibly transforming into a gaunt and different person. The breaking point came when he discovered Björk was dating Goldie, the British musician. Something irrevocably broke within him. In his diary, Lopez chillingly wrote that if he couldn't have her, he would destroy her. He meticulously constructed a letter bomb, a hollowed-out book rigged with sulfuric acid, designed to spray into her face upon opening. He addressed the package to her London home, and, on September 12, 1996, he mailed it. He then returned to his apartment, sat before his camera one final time, painted his face red and green, and shot himself in the head. The camera continued to record the horrific aftermath. For days later, police in Florida discovered his body. Upon watching his disturbing video diaries, they immediately contacted London authorities. The Metropolitan Police intercepted the package at a sorting office, preventing it from ever reaching Björk's door. She was never harmed, never saw the bomb, and never witnessed the chilling tapes. Yet, for an entire year, in a small apartment in Florida, a man she had never met had been painstakingly constructing a device intended to disfigure her, documenting every single step of his descent as though the world was obligated to bear witness to his delusion. The tapes endured, and Ricardo Lopez's video diary became one of the most profoundly disturbing records of obsession ever made. Björk, despite her terror, sent flowers to his family, then promptly left London, never to return.